A very good evening. From stories around the world to stories here at home, this is the National News Broadcast. I'm Vidushini Sadish Kumar.
A very good evening indeed. I'm Charita Vinipurarachi, and now let's move on to the headlines for tonight's news.
Preparations are already completed for the inoculation of COVID-19 vaccine. Prime Minister instructs to expedite the process to repatriate migrant workers. Shania Besekar says the former president was informed that the group connected to the damaging of Buddha statues in Mavanella and explosives in Vanathavilluva has a possibility of causing a destructive activity. The decision to increase the daily wage of the state sector workers up to 1,000 rupees will not be altered, stated by the government. 3-day-long protest in Netherlands over corona-related restrictions.
On to those and other stories in detail now, and starting off with local stories. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa instructed relevant officials to take necessary measures to expedite the process to repatriate Sri Lankan migrant workers expecting to return to the country. These instructions were directed during a discussion held at the Temple Trees on the repatriation of migrant Sri Lankan workers. State Minister Priyanka Rajaratne pointed out that a large number of Sri Lankan migrant workers affected with economic difficulties are faced with numerous inconveniences without being able to return to the country. The Prime Minister mentioned that prompt measures will be taken to repatriate migrant workers following their discussions with the Presidential Task Force for the Prevention of COVID-19 outbreak. Attention was directed on granting approval for commercial all-fare flights to bring back the migrant workers into the country and direct them to PCR test upon arrival. The Prime Minister said that the Presidential Task Force will be directed to determine the possibility to grant approval for the quarantining process in accordance to available facilities. A total of 32,000 Sri Lankan migrant workers have been repatriated into the country thus far, while another 22,483 are expected to return to the country. Chairman of the Sri Lankan Airlines Ashok Pathurage said that relevant flights to repatriate migrant workers were facilitated considering the available spaces in the quarantine centres in the country. Secretary to the Prime Minister Gamini Senarath, Chief of the Staff to Prime Minister Yoshitha Rajapaksa were present at this occasion. State Minister Dr. Sudarshani Fernandopoulos says the preparations have already been completed for the commencement of the inoculation process in the country in an effort to curb the spread of COVID-19 outbreak. She said that Sri Lanka has vast experience in vaccination, and maintaining that status, the government will provide the best available vaccine for the people in the country. She said that Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is the best possible option for the country considering the available infrastructure facilities in the country. She made these remarks at a media briefing held today.
Definitely, because whatever vaccines that are brought into the country will have to be registered by the National Medicinal Regulatory Authority. So now NMRA has given emergency approval for AstraZeneca. Right now WHO has given listed only Pfizer Biotech, but for Oxford AstraZeneca and Moderna, they have sort of, the 3 stages have been completed. So very soon they will be giving approval. And also WHO also has recommended for countries, when considering approval, if they have got authority from recognized, authorities to go ahead. So definitely we have been immunizing our children for more than 50 years, and, we have very good indicators. We have been able to eliminate so many communicable diseases. So even in COVID vaccination, we will be giving the best to the people. And Oxford AstraZeneca is, we are very comfortable with Oxford AstraZeneca because we have the infrastructure to maintain cold chain, because we have to ensure and the temperature. So cold chain maintenance is very important because we have to give a potent vaccine to our people, Sri Lankans. So in this regard, Oxford AstraZeneca is well suited for our infrastructure. But we also have made preparation in case we get a donation of Pfizer vaccine. We are ready to go ahead. We already have identified the available facilities to store and transport even at -70.
Secretary to the State Ministry of Primary Health Care, Epidemics and COVID Disease Control, Dr. Amal Harsh De Silva, also made remarks on the forthcoming vaccination process.
600,000 doses can cover the total front end of healthcare. We have only 155,000 health employees in the public sector, and there are also some of the frontline health sectors in the health sector, people in the private sector also, and then also the front end of Triforces. Because as you know, when they check vehicles, when they go after people, they also become a priority. I think, for anything in life, preparation is the key. When it comes to healthcare, there's nothing that we can do without proper preparation. And I think, therefore, though we are very confident that we can give it in a hurry, but the Honourable Minister, decided to have a dry run, and then also to see how this could be, whether there are bottlenecks or not. People don't want to wait in large queues for a long time, and that's also very bad at this time, because that also can spread COVID. Therefore, we want to prime the whole health forces and then see the inconvenience are reduced to the public or the country, and also the frontline health workers, because no one would like to suffer in a queue to get the vaccine. Getting down a vaccine is one thing, vaccination is another. And then also getting the benefit of the vaccination to the public is a completely another thing, because we also will have to combine with the behavior changes and all that along with the vaccine. Therefore, I think it's a combination of things that is going to give us success. And I think this Presidential Task Force on Vaccine, headed by Mr. Lalit Wiratunga, I think we must, the whole committee was working very hard to get this thing, and also our bilateral relations with our friendly country, India, the Excellency President, that has brought this vaccine so soon to Sri Lanka. State Pharmacy Corporation has already taken steps, he's taking steps to bring down 2 million doses another vaccine. And then also there are so many efforts in the country to produce our own vaccines also. There are many proposals coming on our way, and therefore I think the future is not that bleak for Sri Lanka.
Now on to a local corona update. The number of COVID-19 recoveries in the country has increased up to 51,046. A total of 709 recoveries were reported in the country today. A consignment of close to 600,000 Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine doses is expected to arrive into the country under a grant facility of the Indian government with the direct mediation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The percentage of fully recovered patients has increased to 85.74%. Accordingly, 13.78% or 8,203 patients are still undergoing treatment. A total of 15,753 COVID-19 recoveries have been reported in the country since the beginning of this month. Another 709 have recovered and left the treatment centres today. Another 369 COVID-19 patients were identified in the island today. All patients have been identified as close contacts of Paliaguda COVID cluster. Director of Allergy, Immunology and Cell Biology Institute of Sri Lanka, Sri Jayawardenepura University, Dr. Chandima Jeevantara has indicated that a new variant of the COVID-19 virus has been identified in the country. 14,799 PCR tests were conducted yesterday. Accordingly, the total number of PCR tests up to now has reached 1,633,885. Another 4 COVID-19 deaths were reported yesterday. The deceased have been identified as residents from Beruwala, Deraniyagala, Warakagoda and Colombo 8 areas. The intercity night train service from Batticaloa to Colombo was resumed operations from last night after 3 months. The daytime train service to Batticaloa was also resumed recently. Trade stalls and roads which were temporarily closed down in Vaunia area have been reopened.
And now let's move on to the world update of the COVID-19 pandemic. The novel coronavirus pandemic has infected more than 100 million people around the world, with over 2.1 million fatalities. Meanwhile, Netherlands police have arrested more than 150 people after rioting broke out for a third night around the Netherlands yesterday. The unrest started over a week after the government imposed a nighttime curfew on the last Saturday, aimed at curbing the spread of COVID-19.
Police in the Netherlands arrested at least 70 people on Monday after riots broke out across the country for a third night in a row. In Rotterdam, anti-lockdown demonstrators started fires and clashed with police in protest of a new nighttime curfew. There were similar scenes in Amsterdam, as well as the smaller centres of Haarlem-Gielen and Den Bosch. The 9 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. curfew came into force on Saturday evening to curb the spread of coronavirus. It's the country's first nationwide curfew since World War II. Many say it's not necessary as cases of COVID-19 are falling in the Netherlands. with the lowest number of new infections reported on Monday since December the 1st. But the government is worried about a highly contagious UK variant of the disease spreading. The unrest started over the weekend when protesters in several cities looted stores, started fires and clashed with law enforcement. In one case, knives were thrown at police and a COVID-19 testing station was burned down. The events resulted in 240 arrests and thousands of fines were handed out for defying the curfew. Earlier on Monday, Prime Minister Mark Rutte condemned what he called the criminal violence of the weekend.
What we saw has nothing to do with fighting for freedom. We didn't take all these measures for fun. We did so because we are fighting against the virus, and it's the virus which is actually robbing our freedom.
Schools and non-essential shops in the Netherlands have been shut since mid-December, following the closure of bars and restaurants 2 months earlier.
President and Prime Minister extended their best wishes to Most Venerable Kottakotta Dhammawasa Thera and Venerable Muruthetwe Ananda Thera on their birthdays. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa wished good health to Chief Prelate of Sri Lanka Amarapura sect Agga Mahapandita Most Venerable Kottakotta Dhammawasa Thera during his visit to Dhammapalarama Vihara in Mount Lavinia this morning. The President also took part in an almsgiving for 50 bhikkhus to invoke blessings on the Chief Prelate. A commemorative stamp issued to mark the 88th birth anniversary of Most Venerable Kottakotta Dhammawasa Thera was presented to the Chief Prelate. Most Venerable Ganthune Asaji Thera, Most Venerable Ittapane Dhammalankara Thera, Most Venerable Makulwe Vimala Thera and Most Venerable Tirukunamale Ananda Thera were present at this occasion. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also visited Most Venerable Kottakotta Dhammawasa Thera and wished good health for him on his birthday. The Chief Prelate conducted an Anusasana with praise to the Prime Minister for the measures undertaken to safeguard the people of the country amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit also visited Most Venerable Kottakotta Dhammawasa Thera and wished good health for him on his birthday. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa also wished good health to Chief Sanganayaka of Western Province and Chief Incumbent of Abhayarama Temple in Narayanpeta, Venerable Muruthetwe Ananda Thera on his birthday during his visit to the temple today. The President also observed a blood donation program and the program to distribute essential goods for the residents of the area organized on behalf of the birthday of the Chief Sanganayaka. The Prime Minister inquired the well-being of Venerable Muruthetwe Ananda Thera during his visit to Abhayarama Temple in Narayanpeta. The Prime Minister extended his well wishes to the chief incumbent of his 78th birth anniversary. Venerable Muruthetwe Ananda Thera conducted an Anusasana on the disciplines of Dhamma related to the political, social and economic processes in the country. The Prime Minister engaged in a cordial discussion with the medical staff who had visited the temple for blood donation program.
And meanwhile, India's High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Gopal Begle, says that India will remain committed to assisting Sri Lanka with increased foreign investment and cooperation in infrastructure projects, including renewable energy sector. The Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka made these remarks while issuing a statement to mark the 72nd Republic Day of India today. Republic Day of India honours the date on which the Constitution of India came into effect on January 26, 1950, turning the nation into a newly formed republic. Marking the 72nd Republic Day, the High Commissioner hoisted the national flag and inspected the guards of honour of the occasion. A new India-Sri Lanka friendship logo was unveiled at the ceremony. The logo was selected through crowdsourcing by organising a nationwide design contest among school children across Sri Lanka. The new logo signifies the development cooperation and partnership between India and Sri Lanka and shall be used by the High Commission for official purposes. In the statement, India's High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Gopal Begle, says he is confident that working together, India and Sri Lanka will be able to successfully overcome the contemporary economic and other challenges. The event was held in strict compliance with COVID-19 guidelines. Only members of Indian High Commissioner took part in the restricted event. The ceremony was also consisted of many colourful performances depicting the rich cultural diversity in India. Similarly, events were organised by the assisting High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, Kandy, Consulate General in Jaffna and Consulate General in Hambantota. Stay tuned for more local stories at the other side of this break. Welcome back and more news from home. The government emphasizes that the decision to increase the daily wage of the state sector workers up to 1,000 rupees will not be altered. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the proposal presented by the Minister of Labour in this regard. Addressing a media briefing held today, Cabinet media spokesman Minister CID Director also mentioned that the Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval for the revision of the existing state housing scheme. Cabinet media spokesman Minister CID Director said that by now 2 projects, namely a house of 550 square feet, the sole land ownership of 7 purchased with the sponsorship of the state, and the house of 550 square feet with the partnership of the Government of India and Sri Lanka are being implemented. He said that approval of the Cabinet of Ministers has been granted to the resolution table to take necessary steps in following one general methodology when allocating houses for the state community. He added that construction of the first phase of the house spending 1.3 million rupees with square feet of 550 can be developed up to 2 stories. He also said that 3 more purchases will be allocated for each beneficiary for animal husbandry and home gardening. The minister also addressed on proposed increasing of daily wages of the employees in the state sector. He said that the Prime Minister presented the budget proposals to the Parliament suggesting the daily wage of 1,000 rupees for the state sector. Accordingly, he said that several rounds of discussions were held among the relevant stakeholders with the aim to grant proposed wage increases. The minister said that Cabinet of Ministers approved the resolution to take necessary steps to increase employee wages of the state sector up to 1,000 rupees across wages control boards and other implement to relevant budget proposals in this regard.
ඒ සියලු ප්‍රශ්න සම්බන්ධව සාකච්ඡා කරමින් කටයුතු කරන අතරතුර 10 දීමනාව කෙසේවත් වෙනස් කරන්නේ නැහැයි කියන මතයේ ඉන්නේ. යම් කිසි විදිහකින් හාම්පුතුන්ගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් මතුවුවොත් පරිපාලක මණ්ඩලය හරහා හෝ රුපියල් 10 දීමනාව දීමට කටයුතු කරනවා.
Plans have been made to construct 100 new port buildings within next 3 years in the country. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to obtain required consultancy services from the Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau in this regard. Steps have been taken to increase the number of court judges considering the amount of court cases heaped up in this court. Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval for the establishment of Industrial City Katunayaka. Accordingly, proposed project will be established in an area of 100 acres in Kaludiyalawatte, Katana. An elevated expressway has been proposed to be constructed from the new Kalaniya Bridge via Rajagiriya connecting Outer Circular Highway in Athurugiriya interchange. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval requests for proposals for the implementation of this project. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa informed the Cabinet of Ministers regarding the AstraZeneca COVID Shield vaccine grant from India. Accordingly, a consignment of 500,000 vaccines expected to provide to the country. The Cabinet of Ministers has decided to express the appreciation and the gratitude of the Sri Lankan government in this regard. And former Director of Criminal Investigations Department Shania Besekar says former President Maithripala Sirisena was informed before the Easter Sunday attack that one group had been connected to the damaging of Buddha statues in Mamanella and recovering of explosives in Vanathavelluva incidents, that this group has the possibility in causing a destructive activity. He said that the former president failed to direct any attention in this regard, as a former CID Director recorded a statement with the Presidential Commission from National Hospital Colombo via Skype technology for the second day today. The former CID Director said he realized that a certain criminal group is planning to cause a massive muzzle following the detection of a large consignment of explosives on January 16, 2019 from Laktuwatta in Vanathavelluva. He said that during investigations, the detection of explosives were revealed as an extension of the incident related to the damaging of Buddha statues in Mamanella, and both the incidents has been carried out by one extremist group. He said that IP Marasinghe and his team had identified the leader of the group as Zaharan Hashim and made attempts to take him into custody. He also said that failure to apprehend the suspects was due to the inability to detect the whereabouts of the suspects with the use of telecommunication towers, as the suspects has been using a mobile application to disguise their locations. He said that they have requested for the relevant details from the company which owns the mobile application, yet the company failed to respond to the request positively. He also said that he informed the former president over this issue and requested him to raise it at the Security Council meeting. He said that the former president assumed his an opportunity to speak in this regard before the council. However, the former president failed to convene him to the council. He also said he had mentioned about extremist group to the former president, but not the name of the suspect, Zaharan Hashim.
Ministry of Urban Development and Housing has taken steps to construct 12 multi-storied car parks in main cities in several districts, including Colombo. The aim of this project is to provide a permanent solution for the issues concerning to heavy traffic congestion and limited parking facilities. One car park under this project will be constructed near Norris Canal Road in Colombo 7. A heavy traffic congestion prevails near Colombo National Hospital vicinity due to insufficient parking facilities. This condition severely affects when patients are being transported to the hospital for emergency treatment purposes. Accordingly, the decision to construct the new parking space at the Old Trade Complex premises at the Norris Canal Road. After considering these issues, the Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the relevant proposal presented by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa in this regard. The first project under this program was initiated with the construction of the telecom car park situated near Lake House, Colombo. The Urban Development Authority spent a total of 1,113 million rupees for this project. This is the first multi-purpose car park constructed by a state institute. Plans have been made to construct car parks in Colombo Fort, Peta, DS Senanayaka Road roundabout, Union Place and Narhampita, as well as in cities such as Battaramulla, Anuradhapura and.
And with that, we conclude tonight's news. Do it just tomorrow at the very same time. Stay safe. Good night.
Good night.